Hello, this is Gene. I want to talk about the greatest con job probably in the last 50 years. And what I'm talking about is, of course, that in our society or in the West in general, that women are looked at as victims and or they're being oppressed every day, 24/7, every day. Now, people wonder why I'm going to come to this conclusion. Before I started veering to where I started talking about the alt-right or far-right politics, I first started on YouTube as therapy after my stroke. And people went back and looked at my first videos, might see a little difference of how I talked back then and how I talk now. It's not a huge improvement. There are sometimes I can come on here and not really mess up any words that I say. I can't really script anything. This is all out of my brain. And my brain has a capacity that once I go past it, I can't really say anything. My brain basically shuts down. So I got on YouTube and just started talking just to help for therapy. And I put a couple of it out there. A couple of people watched what I liked had to say. And I went from there. And I've always been a political junkie. And when I first started my first YouTube channel, probably 5 years ago, I would still consider myself probably a feminist back then. Or a feminist that I thought that how my mom was a feminist. What I call the second wave of feminism. Basically women being able to get out of the house and actually have a job and working in the same environment that other men were at. And who couldn't support that? Of course we used to support that. We didn't know that it would have a huge impact in the family makeup from that point, and nobody wants to talk about that really. But what we know right now is that basically women still, and I hate to put this on racial lines, but white women especially continually say that they're the most oppressed person in the West, and they continually go up on TV, online, or have books that basically says that they are. And you get some people that they're on the left, even people that support like Black Lives Matter, that just looks at feminists that are white and just say, what the fuck are you talking about with oppression? You're fucking crazy. But the reason why I want to talk about this is because we've been seeing this throughout. They had the Golden Globes a couple days ago. They started talking about, a couple women up there said that, that both of them talk about the pay gap apparently that actually exists in Hollywood, or were they talking about the greater pay gap that goes on in the West? That can clearly be shown that if you take away the choices and how many people work and how much the type of jobs that they have, that there is no real pay gap. And this is something that every economist has basically said this. But it doesn't really matter because they have the power. Even in the White House now, you have a Republican in office. You think that maybe there were signs that Trump was like, we're not going to take this shit. There was a video, and hopefully I'll find it and I'll put it below and I'll talk about it. A woman gets up, clearly somebody in school. I think she was upset that she had to pay her loans back for her worthless degree. But she basically said that, would you pay a woman the same rate that you may do a man? And he just looked at her and he said, if you were good enough, I would. Well, that's basically what it's all about, right? It's about merit. It's never about your gender when it comes to this. And another thing that actually wanted me to take this video and put it out there is John DeMore just filed against Google about what happened to him. And I looked through the entire of his complaint. I think some of it is okay, But 5 years ago, I would have laughed at this and said, oh, he's a white guy. Why is he complaining? I would have been like the people in Google basically saying the same thing back to him. Their echo chamber was so leftist biased that they didn't really know that they were doing that. They just thought that they were right. They thought that their beliefs trumped everybody else's. They had the moral high ground. So I have this going on, and I'm all these people in Google who are making millions of dollars during their lifetime, and they're basically talking about marginalizing and people in their own company that get the same pay of them and still saying they're oppressed. And women will say that there's something about, it can't be about white men. And whenever they talk about white men at Google, they boo and hiss it. So we had this at the Google at the awards, the Golden Globes as well. You had Natalie Portman, who was chosen to be in the prequels of Star Wars, probably was a man that signed her up on that. I'm imagining, sure, I don't want to say this, but it probably was a Jewish man. I don't know that she did anything for the role. I don't know. But this is the same woman that was, when she was like 15 years old or younger than that, she was in a movie with called The Leon, the Professional, and she basically acted like she wanted to have sex with a guy that was 30 years older than him. But that's another point. The thing is that she basically up there and basically said that all men were dominated for directors. Somehow equating that the foreign press, which is the most liberal press out there, would only nominate males because there's an oppression that's going there, that they would never nominate females. So and they continually talk about this, that somehow they're being held back when it's that the facts on the ground don't support it. Women are the most privileged entities in the West. They are. There is no real debate about this. If they still believe that there's some sort of systemic oppression that's going against just because they're a female, they really need to wake up. And I had this this complaint with my wife. I've talked about the pay gap for years. When I got out of the military, I got an offer to go to Harris, which was a big RD communication company in the South. They do a lot of things with satellites and stuff, and I got in. And there was another woman that was a little bit younger than me, but she had the same type of qualifications. And we're not really supposed to tell each other what you got when you actually do your negotiation, you sign that stuff. But there are little things that you can do it. And obviously she worked with me, so I talked to her about it. And it turns out she ended up getting $1,000 a year less than me. And my wife believes that that's still proof of a pay gap. I said, no, I negotiated for more money. I said that I was worth this much more than this person was. She took what she took. I wasn't in the room. I would have said, give her more. But I wasn't. I fought for that, another $1,000 from my family. And somehow she believes that this is indicative of some sort of a pay gap. And I said, no, this is choices that she made, that she thought that she wasn't good enough to be that way. And it's like, I just looked at it and I said, but even that's not the 23%. I mean, when you look at that, what is that, less than 1%? That's about 1.3% of your pay. So that really, I mean, that's in the margin of error of any type of test. And if you look at all this issues, it also comes down to when the choices are coming in and how actually women work less than men in the same field, that it equals out at the end. And because of all these changes that we've been told all this for the last 20 years, that women are oppressed, that the laws have changed, that the companies have changed, women actually make more to start out now. Especially if they're single, they make more money than the men do, because they're all worried that these companies are so worried that they're going to be sued for this. And that's another thing is women always, when you look at the suits against corporations, it's dominated by females. I guess they still think they're not get what they deserve. But I could go on and on about this, about why this, I mean, obviously in 1963, we have an act that said you couldn't do it. So we've had this for 54 years, and yet they're still saying oppressed. And these people get online and they say this stuff, or they do it in front of probably 1 billion people watching the Golden Globes, or they'll say it at the Academy Awards because it happened before. So women see this shit and they go to college and they believe this stuff and they see it in a college setting and they think that it's true, and they keep changing the culture to believe this stuff. Now, nobody here is going to say that there wasn't some obstacles for women at some point in this country. But without fail, all those obstacles were not really there given to them by men. Men were there to make it better for women. They always have been that way. There was a time that women were considered property, but who would go to jail if the woman did something wrong? The men would. By law, we were responsible for the actions for our women's due. And even today, because the courts, even in society at whole, don't really hold women at the same level of responsibility that we deal with men. And I've been talking about this for a while on my channel, and I guess when I have this conversation with my wife or other women of her age group, they don't understand when I say we don't hold women to the same responsible level that we do for men. You will never have equality. It'll never happen anyway, but you'll never have it because the society doesn't look at somebody that you're at the same level as us. That's not men doing it, it's other women. They don't want you to have the responsibility. They want the state to come in and support you. There are no programs for men who have babies and stuff. They don't do this. This is for women. And this all changed in the last 40 or 50 years, that men got out of the business of basically raising their wife. We first went, go ahead and get out and do what you want to do. And then they started to get more involved with stuff, and they got the no fault divorce. And then they had the welfare state came in and said, if you lose your man, we're going to still take care of you because babies. And of course, we're going to make sure we take care of the babies, right? But if you do that, you also have to take care of the mother who's taking care of the baby. So it's like this circle jerk that happened, and we allowed it to happen. But at the same time, no matter what we try to do, and personally I think that was the wrong way to go, we were still trying to make sure the women are okay. There is no thing in the back of our mind that says that we're trying to oppress women, and I'm getting really sick of it. And when I hear it in my own house, I get really sick about it because she has never been stopped from doing anything in her life. My daughters have never been stopped because of their sex, ever. In fact, they've had more opportunities than my son has, and my other son has. So it's at points that it gets very heated between us. And she says that this form of me that talks of stuff like this, I think at first she probably was okay with it, but now that I got to the whole identitarian shit, she doesn't like that so much. She thinks that that's actually ruined our relationship. And I'm like, oh, okay, so because I'm passionate about what my sons are going to face, and to realize that I know that the culture is wrong for the future, that I'm somehow damaging what we have together. I said, you think a lot about yourself. You know, I love you and all that stuff, but there's more than just us. And this comes back to the whole thing about with Sargon of Akkad, Jordan Peterson, their hyper individualism, and their message is being lost. And it's being trumped, really, by the alt-right. Now, do we have enough to go past these guys that have so much money that's coming in, that have so much e-fame? We don't at this point, but we're actually cutting them a little bit. And some of them are actually figuring out that, hey, maybe what I'm talking about isn't really going to help. Now, getting back to what I want to say, when I started this whole video, I talked about the biggest con in Western world. It's clearly that this society believes that women are oppressed, that we have to continually raise them up. And every movie that we have has to have an empowering female arc. And we have to show them either be and act like a guy, you know, sex with men or other women, Atomic Blonde. It's just over and over and over again. Or that they can beat men twice their size. Now, one or two movies like that might be fun. Wonder Woman, of course, she's a god. She should be able to boot anybody. I don't think any guy has an issue with that. But when you have normal people who don't have any physical attributes are still beating people up. I watched the movie, and I love the first two movies in this series, John Wick 2. There's a woman in there who's probably less than 100 pounds, and she's like the killer, and she could do all this shit. And it gets stupid at some point. You lose, all you want to do is push that out there. And then you have women who actually think that they could talk that way to men. And then they want to claim victimhood. If a guy says, fuck that, I'm not going to listen to it. Or if you hit me and I hit you back, then men are like, oh, see, you changed. There's no such thing as chivalry anymore. Well, why should there be? Why should there not be a movement like MGTOW? As much as I think it's anathema to our culture to have a movement like that, there's a reason why this happens. And I see it, the alt-right, they just look at MGTOWs that they're new losers in the basement. They're not. Some might be, but some people in the alt-right are that way as well. The point I'm trying to get across here is this con has been so huge that it's conned men to not be men, that we've told women that they're at the state they're as strong as men, that at some areas they can be better than men in areas that men dominate, that women never really will dominate. And there are places that women dominate that men won't normally dominate. No matter what the state tries to do, it says, hey, we're going to give you all this money to go into STEM. Women don't go there. And then big, huge corporations like Google continually force this down and put women as a marginalized part of society. Women, who are the majority, who spend 85% of all the money that comes. They have the most power of anybody in the United States. And unfortunately, and I said before, there's one in the White House that has the ear of the president. I thought that we were past that. I thought that with Obama being out of the White House, that we wouldn't have the feminists wouldn't have his ear. But they have something even more important, that they have Ivanka Trump having the ear of the president now. And some guys, they will do pretty much anything what their daughter says. And I think in a lot of ways, she does have him around her pinky. And it's unfortunate. She actually had a tweet the other day talking about the Me Too shit. And then all the people that are really leftists are like, oh, she can't be part of that. Well, I want this to come out. I want to understand why women are not responsible for anything that happened during this time. That they knew it was going on and they did nothing about it. And then 30 years later, they want to go up there and act like they're the ones that saved us all from all these men like this. I'm tired of being equated with men like Harvey Weinstein. I'm tired that this idea that all men are basically born that they're going to be this way, that we oppress women just because they're women. And it's the biggest bullshit in the world, and men will not stand up and fight it. In fact, they continue on and support this bullshit. And if you look at the Google thing with Damore, there are so many men that sit there, oh my God, you're racist and all this shit. They're men. I don't understand this. We've lost our way. And I want to do a video today about the untruths or the unpopular truth of the sexes. And I'll get to that at some point. The problem is we've lost the culture here between the sexes, and it doesn't really matter anymore. Men are so cucked that we're just going to allow this to happen. No matter what I do, and I'll try to teach my boys to do to understand what's going on, but the culture is just geared against them. And if anybody would actually wake up, and probably the biggest problem that I have when I have these discussions with any women or my wife is they don't do the research. They just say, well, I don't know anybody that's like that. And yeah, I would consider myself a feminist. I'm like, do you understand what feminism is today? Do you even understand? You know that I was a feminist. You knew that when we got married. How left I was. How I was about women's rights. That's what I was about. And now I've changed. What do you think? Do you think I just changed just for the hell of it? Do you want to say because it was a stroke and it changed my brain? No, I was an anti-feminist before that, but I wasn't as hardcore as I am now. In fact, I went past all that when I was going down that rabbit hole that got me down to the alt-right. That was just the stuff at the top. But it's still there, and it's so pervasive, and people, no matter how many times you would debunk it and say that's all bullshit, they get up there and they continually say it. And I want them to have their voice. Go ahead and say it. But the shaming and Steph Myers was basically up there saying, thank you for letting me say this. And guys like Opie's up there after Borton said what she did, and he's like, oh, where is James Woods? Why wasn't he there? Why isn't like Shatner there in the crowd? Somebody that's conservative, if they win a reward at one of these places, need to get up and stand up. Because, Jesus, we're being destroyed in the media and everything else, and we're all equated by guys like Weinstein or Cosme, although I don't necessarily believe all that shit. It just really needs to stop. That's all I had to say. Let me know what you're talking about, what you think about this. I get a little heated about this because it's just been pushed down so much, and I see what it's doing to men. And when men have no value in the society, if they're always blamed for everything, it's going to cause even more issues later on. We've already destroyed the black community by having no fathers in the home, so guys end up going to prison and just starts this cycle of no way out. And the other way is for white men, or to just blame white men, and you have half other men, white men, basically shaming other men. And if it was the other way around, the double standard is so obvious here. There was no way we get away with it. But that's it. That's all I have to say today. Thank you for watching, and you guys have a good day, and I'll talk to you later. Bye.